Afternoon, folks. Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here with a look at your tropical update for September 4th of 2019. As always, brought to you by the good folks over at Pine Belt Gutters. Things are still reasonably active out into the tropics. Thankfully, Dorian continues to stay out to sea, barely, but out to sea. And then Fernand, or Fernand, you got to say it with a particular accent, which I cannot do. As well as Gabrielle are also out there floating around. We've got Invest 92 and as well as another wave coming off. Peak of hurricane season's coming though. We're about 6 days out from it. September 10th is the technical peak. So as we have been climbing the mountain all this time, we get to our peak as we head through the 10th, and then we start to kind of cruise back down. We get a little secondary peak as we head through the end of October as cold fronts start to make their way all the way through the southeast and into the Gulf of Mexico, just off the coast of the southeastern United States. You end up with this little uptick again as the back ends of fronts and clusters of thunderstorms break off and then eventually kind of get the mind of their own. I will say that we've made it all the way down to Gabrielle. Next name on the list is Umberto. I can actually say that one with the correct accent. And then beyond that, Imelda, and then Jerry and Karen is where we're supposed to end this year, given the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. Here's Fernand there. We've got Dorian there. Some people asked whatever happened to the E storm. Remember, that was Aaron, a very short-lived tropical storm out in the Atlantic. It's actually close to where Invest 92L is right now, right here near Bermuda. Aaron was right out here. That was on the tail end of a front, spun up and out to sea. I don't think it only lasts about 36 hours. And then we've got one little wave here, and then we've got Gabrielle there. So things in the Atlantic are reasonably active. I want to say that this is the third year in a row that we've had at least three named storms at the same time, maybe even the fourth year in a row, at the same time out in the tropical Atlantic. You can see Dorian, we've got plenty of dry air all around Dorian, but because Hurricane Dorian was a pretty compact system and it's reasonably still well organized, it doesn't really matter. It ate a little bit of this dry air, but for the most part, it's been able to kind of shield itself from all of the dry air that's around it. It's finally moving to the north quickly compared to where it's been the last couple of days. Now at 9 miles an hour, so that's a good jog in terms of speed. 105-mile-an-hour wind, gusting to 125 now, just off 115 miles to the east of Jacksonville, Florida. So the folks in Florida are starting to get out of the woods with this, but we still got Georgia and the Carolinas, as well as perhaps parts of Virginia that may be dealing with effects of Dorian here. We've got Fernand here with wind at 35 miles an hour, gusting to 45 as this moves ashore. In fact, I think it just recently did. And now a tropical depression. This is going to bring a whole mess of rain and potential flooding to parts of Mexico. We've got Gabrielle out here in the open Atlantic. This one isn't really going to bother anybody. This is staying out to sea. Currently this is Gabrielle, not Fernand. Apologize about that. It's going to stay a tropical storm according to the forecast. Wind at 50, gusting to 65, moving northwest at 9 miles an hour. Then we've got another wave here and another wave there worth noting. First things first, let's go back to Invest 92L. Now with a 60% chance of development as we head through the next couple of days. The center of this has actually moved off to the north of Bermuda, so that's good news. They're finally getting some things to calm down around them. As this continues to lift to the north, there's a pretty decent shot that we get development, though, again, it's not going to bother anybody as this thing's going to stay out to sea. Here's the next one that's interesting. Currently down to a 60% chance. That's still a 6 in 10 shot that this thing develops. It was up to 70% yesterday. The models today are a little more split on if this thing ever truly becomes something. However, I will say that even if this doesn't, there's another wave back in behind it that models are also picking up on. Again, it's that time of the year. But right now, a 0 to 60% chance of development as we head through the next couple of days as this passes over the Cape Verde Islands, the Cabo Verde Islands, as this moves out into the open Atlantic. We'll have to keep tabs on this one because there's a chance that it stays far enough south that it kind of glides back over toward Puerto Rico over the next about week and may again have some semblance of organization at that point and then that would be worth watching for another week as that moves closer to the southeastern coast. Okay, so 700 millibar moisture, 850 vorticity map. You guys are all used to looking at this now. We've been looking at this thing since about May. The grayed out areas, those are the areas where there's dry air. We're not worried about any kind of development. Once you get into the blues, the greens, the yellows, the oranges, the reds, the warmer colors, that's where we've got low-level vorticity. That's a fancy word for low-level spin in the atmosphere. And you can see that when you get some good low-level spin, it shows up. There's Dorian right here, a big old bullseye of orange and red. Gabrielle here, a big old bullseye of orange and red. Invest 92L, maybe not quite as well defined. And eventual Invest 94L down there, again, not quite as well defined. Thursday into Friday, Saturday. By Saturday, boom, gone. Dorian, see you later. I hope I never hear from you ever again. We've got Invest 92L lifts off to the north as well. We've still got Gabrielle floating around out here in the open Atlantic, and then there's maybe eventual 94L floating around down there. Notice, really not much to it. This little area here is actually a little wave that's back here. That was the one wave that I pointed out. It's not an invest, it's just a little wave. It may be worth watching over the next couple of days as it kind of floats a little bit closer to the Bahamas. You can see Gabrielle stays away from everybody. Here's eventual 94L down here. As we go through Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, that one little wave kind of drifts its way toward the Bahamas and maybe the straits between Florida and Cuba. The American model says FUI on 94L, but maybe 95L back behind it, again, if it ever gets a designation. Maybe something worth watching as we head through the 12th of September. This still has 94L trying to hold on as best it can, but the GFS is a little more adamant that the wave back in behind this first one is going to be the one. Let's head on over to the European. We've got Dorian here showing up pretty well. This one actually has 92L showing up pretty decently as well as we head through the day on Thursday. And then Gabrielle back here. That little wave that I was showing you earlier, but then the one that actually has the possible development on it as we head off the coast of Africa. So here goes Dorian back out to sea. We hope we never see it again. It actually ends up meeting up with 92L as you move your way closer to Greenland. Here's Gabrielle floating around here. And there's that first little wave, not really doing anything. Maybe worth watching as it kind of drifts its way past Hispaniola and toward the Bahamas. The European says, we may get some semblance of some kind of low-level area of low pressure associated with this. Not necessarily organization or anything or any kind of tropical development, but we may see something worth at least monitoring at that point. And then the European says, the one back in behind it, we're talking about Invest 90, the potential Invest 94L at this point. Getting a little better organized, and then another wave back in behind that coming off the coast of Africa as well as we head through the 13th and 14th of September. It has that first little wave kind of get curly-cued around and wrapped up in a little frontal boundary, and then it has potential 94L back around Puerto Rico, and the other wave that was back in behind it sliding a little further off to the south of that. So there's the look at the tropical update as we head through the middle of September, through about the next 10 days. Things going to stay reasonably active out there, even as Dorian departs. And Gabrielle not going to do anything with us. Fernand not doing anything for the United States. But perhaps those two waves coming off the African coast, the one that is probably eventually going to be Invest 94L, and then Umberto if we go down the line any further. And then the one behind that, which would be Imelda, and then 95L and Imelda back in behind that. So it's that time of the year where unfortunately we just kind of have to keep tabs on what's happening out there. And we don't really have any downtime as we head toward the peak of hurricane season. So there's a look at your tropical update for September 4th of 2019, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters.